Good evening, Mister. The article I chose is Why Should Literature Be Used in the Language Classroom by Daskolovska and Imova in 2012. Okay, first, let's start with the introduction. The article mentions something interesting, that is that since the goal in ELT, English language teaching, is communication, the activities that are done in the classroom should aim at developing students' communication. But in order to get students to interact with each other, there has to be a reason for them to do so. A problem that communication needs to address or solve. And well, authentic materials are some sources of language that motivate them to interact with each other, since the language that is used is rich and is not usually seen in English textbooks. Mm. Okay, and in the next part, they make the comparison between referential and representational material. Referential material is what I said before in the introduction, the language that is presented in textbooks, where there is only explicit information and students do not need to use higher thinking skills to understand the text, such as critical thinking or imagination. And representational material means using material that will challenge students to to think at a deeper level and use the target language for real purposes. The next part is creativity as an omnipresent phenomenon. Well, teachers tend to believe that creativity is only present in literary texts, but that's not true, because it can be presented in many different kinds of texts. Could be oral, written, such as road signs, newspapers, articles, or dialogues through the use of idioms and expressions. And the idea here is that authentic materials, how can I put this? They motivate learners to use their creativity in order to communicate with others. The next part is authenticity and motivation. The use of text as literary text offer students the chance to analyze how language is actually used in real scenarios. And since students are aware that they are working with real texts, I mean, text that only a native speaker would understand, will increase their reading confidence and motivate them reading even after they finish their formal language education. And that's what we call extensive reading, that I will talk about later. Okay, the next part is active involvement of learners. Now, the use of authentic text is more effective because they demand students to be actively involved in the process of reading, so that they can analyze its content. They have to ask questions, make predictions, form hypotheses, use their imagination, background knowledge, and experience in order to interpret or make sense of the text. Okay, now we have extensive reading, and here's something that is true. It is said that the best way to learn a new language is to live amongst its speakers, but that's not something that is possible for the great majority of English as a foreign language students. So the next best way to learn a language is reading extensively in it. So as teachers, our goal is to, or should be to, motivate students to read authentic texts as much as they can, and gradually develop their capacity to choose what they want to read according to their preferences and interest, and also how they interpret texts. So to conclude, literary texts enrich the language input in the classroom. They are since they are meaningful and memorable, and it is possible to use restricted material in class, such as textbooks, which is usually more suitable at the beginner levels. But it is a good idea to start using authentic material such as literary texts as soon as the students are able to read more complex texts and can make use of higher thinking skills. Now, my point of view. Well, personally, I'm not a fan of literature, but I am well aware that authentic material in the classroom um, is an advantage because it challenges the students and motivates them. And so the learning process is more significant, more significative, and more memorable and enjoyable for them. So I usually try to include articles, videos, of real people interacting with each other in order to increase the students' exposure to the language and know how it is used in real context. Thank you.